listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Number 311.
Hello and welcome to another podcast on the Outdoors Station, and once again I'm starting off by apologising for the massive delay in releasing this podcast after the last one, which I notice is just over a month. There are numerous reasons and excuses I can think of, none of which will speed the process up, but I just wanted to say I am sorry about the delay in this, and we would like to make them more regular if we could. It is just somehow finding the time, which is being snatched in all sorts of directions at the moment. Sadly, we have to start this podcast with a sad announcement. Many people associated with the TGO Challenge, if you've been listening to the podcasts, will have heard of Stan and Bill at Localita Lodge, just outside of Braemar. It's a place which I've never been brave enough to stay a whole night, but certainly I've called in a few times, and they've been magnificent hosts. And certainly, if you look on the internet and hunt for Localita Lodge, I'm sure you will come across countless stories of what kind of hosts they've been. They certainly welcome anybody associated with the TGO Challenge through, but in particular, they also have been welcoming to walkers, people passing through the Localita area all through the year. Sadly, Stan has recently died from cancer. Which has come as a complete surprise, because he was such a sort of jovial, forward-thinking, life and soul of the party person, that it is an even bigger loss to know that he was had that sort of history, and he was keeping it to himself as well. So our thoughts are certainly with Jeanette, his wife, and his family, and in particular with Bill, who must be feeling his loss greatly. So next time you pass through the Localita Lodge area, raise a glass to Stan's memory, if you would. But a wonderful person, and certainly a very, very sad loss to the outdoor community, particularly in the Braemar area. Well, what's been happening since I've been sort of having one of these more chit-chatty type podcasts? Well, we've obviously released the TGO Challenge ones, which have scored an immense amount of downloads, so thanks to everybody for those. I hope you've enjoyed them, and certainly don't forget there's a library of TGO Challenge podcasts to listen to if you ever want to share the adventure. I was recently up in the Cairngorms with two fellow challengers and good friends now, Lee Wells and Tony Bow, and we recorded naturally a little diary for our week in Scotland, and that'll be coming after this podcast, and give you a bit more of a taster. I hope it's of interest. But myself, I've sort of, although we haven't been producing very much, I've also been hunting around the internet and the podcast community, if you like, trying to find something fresh and entertaining to listen to. And sadly, everybody seems to be going by the wayside. Wildebeest was one of the other producers over in the US, and he seems to have gone very, very quiet. I notice he's quite active on Facebook, but I don't think he's released a podcast for over a year now. However, Simon Willis from Sea Kayak, he does, if you just type in Sea Kayaking podcasts, he does an excellent range of content. Again, not very regular, but Simon does work for Newsnight, so the quality of his recordings and his production is second to none, of course. If you're interested into kayaking, in particular sea kayaking, very interesting. Another one I've picked up and listened to a few shows is one called the Indie Travel Podcast. I think their website is indietravelpodcast.com, and that's a couple of young New Zealanders who are travelling the world and sort of affording it by various contributions and things they've got going on with the site, but also offering hints and tips to fellow travellers or people wanting to travel to different parts of the world as they go. And I've dipped into several of their productions, and it's quite interesting to hear their views and advice on, well, there's certainly things as practical as equipment, but also safety and various countries they've actually been through. And it's proved to be, it's, background listening, quite interesting. It's good independent programmes. Something else I did not so long back was I met Ray Mears. I was at a trade show and Ray came over going, Bob. I said, Ray, look, I'm busy. Please, I'm working. Later, guys, later. But nice chap. Just managed to spend 2 or 3 minutes with him chatting about some of the aspects of outdoors, but he was doing his PR thing going around the trade stands, so I didn't have much of a chat. But one thing I did that struck me, how it is when you meet people or you see people who are celebrities, as it were, on TV, and they're always bigger than they look on TV. Well, he was much bigger than he looks on TV. Not in an overweight way. I don't mean that. Just he's as tall as me, or possibly taller, 6'2", 6'2.5", and I always put him down to being much shorter than that. But there you go, something you live and learn. Ray Mears is a big guy. Anyway, what else? Let's have some feedback. We've had feedback, emails coming on a sort of a regular or irregular basis, and I'd like to read out a few, if I may, just with my thanks and any comments to some of the points they've made. Jonathan Hitchin, great podcasts, keep them coming. They are the only reliable podcast for the UK backpacking market. I think they are the only podcast for the UK backpacking market. But thanks very much, Jonathan. We are trying to be as consistent as we can. Philip Dale, senior podcast regarding ever new stoves and pans. Please keep up the good work. Regards, Phil. I'll do my best, Phil. In fact, I used the Vaude Power Lizard up in the Cairngorms trip for a week, and I've now got a Power Toki. So I'm hoping to do a video setting up both tents so people can get an idea of scale and if it's for them. And obviously the Toki's not going to be available until I think January of next year. Paul Anderson, just an email to say thanks to Shirley, Andy and yourself for the recent TGO podcasts. I saved them all up and listened to them all on a rainy Sunday as an antidote to the weather. And that's Paul Alderson. Thank you very much, Paul. Nat Wainwright. Really liking the videos of Stuff Guides, cracking me and my troops mates up. I'm in the TA and due out overseas next year, so I've been looking for lightweight gear to take with me to make meal times a bit more interesting. Well, I'm glad the videos make you laugh. That's from Trooper Wainwright. And whatever QOY Squadron means, I'm not too sure, but there you go. Steve Potter, hi Bob and Rose, just a quick email to thank you for the presently running series of podcasts on this year's TGO Challenge. Great as always. Shame you and Rose weren't in it. Thanks for the good work. It's appreciated. And then all the way from sunny Australia, Kerry Larkin. Kerry, our regular contributor. Congratulations, but where's the fanfare that trumpets the overwhelming crescendo? 300 episodes and everyone a gem. I truly look forward to every new podcast, Bob. Love your voice and humour. The Midsummer Bivvy was a fantastic segment too. So a heartfelt congratulations to you, Rose, Andy, Roman and all your guests. Your efforts are appreciated. It may seem daunting at the moment, but I hope to be listening to episode number 500 and beyond. There's still so much for you. Yes. There's still so much more for you to tell us about. Yeah. What are we, 310 at the moment? 311? Okay, Kerry. Don't hold your breath. Simon Broughton. Podcasts are great, the gear reviews especially. Keep them coming. I'm listening when camping and dark nights are coming, so get ready for winter, please. Kevin Smith, the best podcast around, in fact. Oh, that's very generous of you guys. Thank you very much. And finally, Robin Evans. Now, Robin Evans writes Blog Packing Light. I think it's .co.uk, but certainly if you typed in Blog Packing Light, it's got some very, very useful tips there on making adapting equipment to make it a bit more lightweight. But again, another thanks. Thanks for the latest set of podcasts on the TGO Challenge. I'm sure it took you a lot of time, but the professionalism of the series does you credit. Well done, Shirley and Andy as well. Hope you get on the next one. And he hopes to do 2012 TGOC. Well, as it happens, the leaflets came through today, and we made the list for 2011. So Rose and I now have to decide on a departure point and a route for the TGO Challenge. My thanks to everybody that's taken the time to write. You can, of course, do so. You can email us, and you can also phone. We have a Skype phone number, which is coming up in a moment. If you make a note of that, you can Skype us from anywhere in the world, and it will record a message, or you can just use your normal phone network, and it's just the nominal phone rate, particularly in the UK, and leave us a message. And if you do so, and it's part of the show, as it were, I shall hopefully spin them in as and when time allows. So here's the details.
If you have any feedback, questions or suggestions, why not drop us a line directly to our email address, info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
Call us now and leave a voice message. You can Skype or call us at local rates at any time from any phone on 0208 133 9434.
Recently, if you visited Backpacking Light front page a week or so ago, you would have seen that Rose was invited over to Sweden with a group of other females from around Europe in the outdoor industry to use some equipment and go on a sort of female-only expedition. Now, she did a podcast while she was there, which was really good, talking to some of the manufacturers who were demonstrating or using their equipment, as it were. However, we didn't really sit down and talk with her about her impressions of Sweden and its place as a destination for outdoor activities. Now, last weekend or the weekend before, Rose and our daughter Beth, who was the one that joined us partly on the TGO a couple of years ago, went for a wild camp up at the Crickhowell Horseshoe. They started off from Crickhowell and went round halfway around the Horseshoe and camped somewhere down by the Packhorse Bridge overnight. And while they were whiling away the hours, because obviously it was dark by sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock, and they were enjoying their hot chocolate and brandy, Beth asked Rose for her thoughts on the actual trip itself.
So I'm sat here with Mum, and we're sat in a tent, just had a brew, and I thought it'd be a really nice time to catch up and hear what she's been up to. I know you've been away at Sweden, and you haven't actually told me a bit more about it, so I thought this would be a great opportunity. How did you enjoy it, for starters?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was lovely to get out of the office and into the great outdoors and to visit Sweden, where I've never been before, so that was really cool.
And how long were you there for?
Just a week, well, just over the week it was.
And was it, easy to get there? Was it many connections?
It was surprisingly easy, actually. I got a flight from Heathrow to Stockholm, and then we were sort of to meet up in the northern Sweden. So then I flew from Stockholm on up through northern Sweden to a place called Östersund, and then from there it was a 3-hour bus trip to our sort of lodge where we had a sort of base.
It was quite a trip, really, just to get there.
It was a bit of a trek, but it was worth it. It was beautiful scenery. I mean, anybody who knows Scandinavia, it was full of birch tree forests and running streams, open lakes, really beautiful countryside. And it was just a lovely time of year to go. All of these were just turning, so it was really fantastic.
And it wasn't too cold or too hot? Was it a nice temperature?
We were apparently really lucky with the weather. We did have one of the mornings we woke up and everything was completely white over. It was frosted, and actually it was really cold. The sleeping bag we had was supposed to be down to -10, and I don't think it was. At least it wasn't. I had everything on. I was still cold. But we had some really good weather, and it was actually the last night we were back at the lodge. It absolutely hammered it down, so we missed that, which was brilliant.
Nice timing. So, you said that you were doing walks there? Were you doing anything else, or was it mainly just kind of doing treks?
Well, the idea was it was an invitation to go out by the Scandinavian Outdoor Group, a group of manufacturers, and they wanted us to use their equipment to see how we got on with it, what we thought about it, and feedback, etc. So they'd set up a series of activities. So we started off the first day by canoeing. So we had about half a day's canoeing out from sort of midday to a campsite.
And were they open canoes or were they kayaks?
Yeah, no, it was a Canadian canoe, so sort of two man to a boat, using their equipment. So we obviously had all their rucksacks and everything, and we camped that night. It was all wild camping, and it's a bit like Scotland actually. You can sort of have a right to roam to a certain extent, and you can sort of wild camp. There's only some areas that are prohibited, which are sort of scientific interest, or nature preserves that are particularly that you have to ask permission for. We actually camped in one of those, but they'd actually written for permission to do that. So that was really cool. And then we had another half day's canoeing, and then we went up actually a creek. So from the lake, we sort of canoed across a very large lake, and after the second camp, up a creek which was actually known to have beavers. Apparently they were extinct, and they'd reintroduced them about in the 80s, I believe. And there was a lot of evidence of beavers, and in fact we sort of canoed up the creek as far as we could, and then portaged the canoes a while, and then stowed them before we went hiking. But when we
for anyone that doesn't know, that means carrying the canoes.
Oh yeah, canoeing. And when we came back, the beavers had actually built a dam across part of the creek. We actually had to lift the canoes over it.
And how long did that take? Like how long?
Well, it was only a matter of days, three days, I think, I suppose, that we'd left the canoes and gone off hiking and come back to pick the canoes up. So it was pretty impressive stuff.
So was it just you in Sweden with this group, or were there more people there?
No, it was just it was all women. It's the first one they'd run for an all women's expedition. So it was all women from the outdoor industry from across sort of Europe. So there was women from Belgium, Netherlands, Holland, Sweden, sort of Czechoslovakia, across the board really, which was really interesting because it was sort of lots of different nationalities and lots of different age range too, from sort of early 20s through to, there was one lady who was sort of 60s. So it was really interesting.
Do you think it's quite an easy thing to do to get a plane over there and do some hiking? Are the trails really well marked? How easy is it to actually get around?
There are quite a lot of trails marked. There's sort of summer and winter trails, what is called summer and winter trails. The winter trails are sort of apparently snowmobiles are really popular, so a lot of them are used for that, as well as for hiking and cross-country skiing. And those are really clearly marked. They're very tall, and they have a cross sign on them. I took some photos, and they're spaced out every sort of 50 metres or so, and very easy to follow. But it's also fairly easy to take a bearing. I mean, if you're prepared to sort of go across all different terrain, then you can sort of make your own routes up out there. There's certainly plenty of information and guides if you're interested. I'm sure if you contacted the tourist office, they'd inundate you with material.
And as you said, that camping is fine apart from these specific areas. So in that sense, I suppose it is pretty open, which is nice.
Yeah. The other brilliant thing is the water was safe. It didn't need any filtration systems at all. The water was absolutely fantastic. You could it was like Scotland in the Highlands. You could just drink from any sort of running stream. Brilliant.
So overall, is it? I know. Obviously, you love walking and you've done quite a lot in Scotland and things. Do you think it's a place that you'd go back to, or are there too many other places to go walking?
There's lots. I mean, they haven't got any particularly high mountains. I mean, the one day we actually bought, in fact, we might even have been in Norway. We were right on the border. Norway has sort of higher mountains. So there's no great mountains. I mean, even their highest mountains, I think, are only maybe 2,000-3,000 footers. So they're not... there's not big stuff, but I mean it's certainly really interesting terrain, and they've got some quite well-known trails now marked out. I think there's one called the King's Trail, which looks really good, that you can do in just over a week or more. So,
and then obviously in terms of expense, I think a lot of people will hear of Scandinavian countries and immediately think, oh gosh, that's going to be way too expensive. I mean, how expensive did you find things?
Good question, actually. I mean, obviously we were camping, so we'd taken our own food, and that was a good idea. I mean, the last when I got back to Östersund, I had a night in a hostel before I caught the plane back to Stockholm. And I went out in the local town and I had a bowl of mushroom soup, which cost me £9.50, which...
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so I think actually food and things are really expensive. But on the other hand, I looked in sort of estate agents and you could buy a wonderful, beautiful, wooden Scandinavian house on a lake with lots of land for, £250,000. So... it's there's just not the people there, there's the land and the space, but certainly commodities seemed expensive.
So do you think anything sort of has surprised you about your trip there, or was it all pretty much what you expected?
A lot of it was. I mean, certainly from the equipment point of view, there was nothing revolutionary or outstanding. The only thing that did surprise me was one of the footwear company was Echo. And in England, Echo is usually thought of as old ladies' shoes or people who work in hospitals. But actually they did a presentation and they were quite impressive with what they had to say. They're certainly looking towards the new barefoot philosophy, and the technology they use for their shoes explains why their stuff's really comfortable. And they actually supplied us all with a pair of boots. So if you can imagine, there's sort of 20-odd women all expected to hike for 4 days in brand new boots, and there was a lot of not happy about this, but I don't think I had one person say that they had blisters or a problem with them. The boots were really comfortable, a bit heavier than even my Mendel Lights, but not as heavy as my old-fashioned boots, and actually really comfortable. In fact, I'm wearing them on this walk. Yeah. And they do all sorts of things. Their running shoes look really interesting. I wouldn't mind perhaps getting a pair of those. They got a new sort of... They're based on how fast you run.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really interesting.
How would they measure that?
Well, most people know if they can run a mile in 9 minutes or whatever. So it's dependent on that, and it's to do with the structure of how they got the running shoe. But it looked really interesting. Certainly tried a few on. They're really good, and they do wonderful slippers. They gave us all a pair of slippers at the end, which are made. They use Yaks leather because it's tougher, even though it's got some pigmentation in it. So some other manufacturers don't like using it. But it's apparently much tougher than cow leather. And it was the slippers were based with the Yaks leather and then felted wool, and they're so cosy. I love them.
Exactly what you need in the winter at the moment. So can you get Echo shoes in the UK?
You can. I mean, there's actually an Echo distributor in Malvern, which in a shoe shop, but I don't think they have much of the range. And it was quite interesting too, because they had hiking boots in sort of brown, and some of the people were saying from Cotswolds saying, well, brown hiking boats won't sell in England, and I was really surprised at that. But I think a lot of the Echo distributors in England don't have the full range that's actually available.
I suppose it's just if people have already got a preconception of how the Echo brand is, that they don't necessarily sell, so they don't stock it, which is a shame. But it sounds like they're very exciting, and it's worth having a look online. If I'm sure they'd be able to order the full range online.
Yeah, I think that's true, and definitely worth a look. And another activity that was organised for us was caving, which I'd never really done apart from the tourist one with music and pretty lights. But this was much more potholing, hands and knees crawling through small spaces, which for me was mind over matter. I mean, fantastic when you're down there, the sort of things you can see. But having said that, I don't think I'm going to repeat it that soon.
No, I was going to say, I'm not sure that's my cup of tea, but good on you for giving it a go.
Yeah, it was good to have a go. And then there was a few other small activities they organised, like navigation, fire lighting, sort of general campcraft activities. So, yeah, it was a really good trip.
You're listening to the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Beth and Rose, of course, were actually wild camping while they're up in Crickhowell, and I've got another piece from them shortly with discussing some of the points about how they were feeling, because I know a lot of people feel very apprehensive about doing wild camping. Now, there's a strange situation going on now. Here we are using technology to share the information and the passion and the love that we all have for the outdoors, and self-powered travel, I tend to call it, which I think is the nice way of looking at things. And we're using technology to share the message. record it, store it, share it, move it around, copy it, paste it, whatever. Now, recently I got hold of, or I bought, my phone died, so it was about time I upgraded the phone. So I thought I'd go the whole hog and get an iPhone. So I got one of these new iPhone 4s. Partly as a bit of a techno geek, I wanted to actually have one because I think they look gorgeous. But partly also to find out how people are using the technology and how people were using the apps, making the applications that you can put on these phones, and also was it the Android phones? And it's been quite an interesting little journey, really. I've only had it for a couple of weeks, and I've used it as an iPod, naturally, obviously. I've also downloaded some of the applications, some of the £1, 50p ones, and some of the free applications, all generally to do with the outdoors. There's been a fantastic GPS one, where am I, and what's around me, and all this sort of stuff. And it's quite interesting how technology can be a great system, a great method for spreading whatever message you've got, or spreading the information, sharing the love, as it were. But I've got a foot in both camps here. I enjoy technology. I enjoy doing these podcasts, and I enjoy all the years that I've spent doing media production. And during that time, obviously, I've spent a small fortune on computers. Not only computers, just hardware, software, the actual old reel-to-reel recorders, tape, you name it. It's all been part and parcel of my history. And as it changed over to computers and software, I remember spending a small fortune on it, learning the next piece of software to make myself more employable. And time's gone by, and now it's got more condensed. You can do a lot more with a lot less equipment, which is great. And so, I'd say probably the last 20, 25 years I've spent chasing technology. But I wanted to use it. I wanted to control it. I wanted to use it to make money and earn a living and get by, and then, develop my skills and go on to the next thing. But there seems to be this moment at the moment where the fulcrum's tipping. I don't know if you agree with me on this, but the technology used to be a tool that we used for our benefit, but actually it's starting to tip now, and it's a stick which is being used to beat us with. For example, you now have to do your VAT returns online. They're pushing heavily for, obviously, your tax returns to be online. You have to do numerous things online. It's cheaper if you do direct debit. Every time you phone somebody up, some of the service companies or whatever, they want to go through your personal data, not only identifying who you are, but, can I have your mobile telephone number? Can I have your email address? Can I have this? And it's a data collection exercise. And personally, I'm finding that quite annoying, quite intimidating. And interestingly, what I'm trying to say as part of this is that we found over the last 3-4 months, some of our customers at Backpacking Light, what they've actually done, they've got close to retirement age, and they've shut the house up. They've put all their belongings away. They've rented their house out to somebody else, and they've gone walking for 6 months. And you start to work out the sums involved in this, and it starts to make really good sense, because they're out walking, they're doing something they love, they're keeping extremely fit, they're losing weight, getting down to a lean weight, so therefore they're not spending much money on the amount of food they eat. They're not hoarding food, they're not having wastage. Obviously the equipment they buy, they get 6 months or more use out of them, so they're not continually in the shops sort of spending money on consumer goods they don't really need. And there's this thing that I quite like that idea. I quite like the idea of, running away, escaping, whatever you want to call it, and putting life and the other stuff on hold. But the other side of it is that when you start to look at things a bit like that, I'm noticing that the doom and gloom stuff that's being put out, generally by the news, possibly by the government, whoever it's coming from, is very much a case of divide and rule, isn't it? It's a case of they're keeping you at home because they're keeping you in fear that you're going to lose your home if you don't work. You've got to work. And if you are working, you must look after your money. And if you're looking after your money, you must save it because the pension schemes are going completely rubbish. Then you've also got the latest thing this morning. I woke up and the 7 o'clock news was telling me about the cost of care. and that my age group, as it goes into sort of old age and illness and whatever else that will be associated with it, all of a sudden it's going to cost this much for care. So this complete range of fear is being scattered liberally amongst us. And we're being kept, it's like divide and rule, keep them at home, keep them on the internet, keep them fed information that we want to feed them, don't encourage them to go out, don't encourage them to be independent thinkers, don't encourage them to have freedom, but just tell them that they've got freedom. Anyway, perhaps it's turning into a rant. It wasn't supposed to be, but it's just, I've got one foot on technology, and obviously it's part of my business, I have to use it, and I use it hopefully to my best abilities. And then the other half of my foot is on something that says, actually, I just like to switch it all off and go back to basics. I hope I'm not boring you. Sorry if I am. But it's, just playing on my mind at the moment. Enough doom and gloom. Let's get back to outdoor stuff. Let's get back to Beth and Rose, who went, as I say, wild camping up at the Crickhowell Horseshoe just outside of Brecon, and on the way back home they visited Hay on Wye, which is well known for its book shops, which seem to be open every hour and every day of the year, and also a lot of chintzy cafes there. So we joined them in a chintzy cafe, discussing the wild camping as two women, hopefully. Let's see what they had to say.
Well, we're in Hay on Wye. It's Sunday afternoon. We've had a fantastic walkout this morning.
We survived the night in the wilds, in the woods, bare, just us against nature. It was great.
Yeah, it was fantastic weather this morning. There was a frost when we woke up. It was pretty cold in the night, but we walked out this morning. Glorious sunshine. If we'd have had that yesterday up on the ridge, the views would have been stunning.
But it was still quite a nice walk out, and the views were gorgeous as well this morning, and it wasn't too cold last night. It sort of did drop down to minus because there was, as you say, a good frost this morning, but it was quite nice, very snuggled in the tent, having a nice chat with some brandy.
So when you get back next week to work, and the girl said, well, how was your weekend?
Yeah, I think I've told a few of my friends before I came out. I was having a girls' night out with my mum, and then explained that I was going to be in the Brecon Beacons just for one night camping out in the wilds. And most of them kind of were quite surprised, but supportive. I think a few of them thought I was probably going to have to call mountain services, but we survived, so that's fine.
I guess, to be fair, even a lot of my peer group are not too impressed, or at least wouldn't consider it. They think absolutely balmy. But as we talked up on the ridge yesterday when the weather was absolutely appalling, it just makes you feel more alive.
Yeah, it's a bit more, because we were chatting away and sort of saying, why are we doing this again? It's the challenge, and I mean, in my day-to-day life, I'm sat in an office staring at a computer screen, so it's actually quite nice to get out and do something completely different, and not spend it going out to bars and clubs. Although I do enjoy doing that, it's nice to do something completely different and have the wind on your face and wake up in the morning at sort of with the dawn chorus. It's gorgeous, really, really good.
Excuse me, you were asleep till 8 o'clock this morning, which was amazing because we went to bed so early. But I think the bottom line is it just makes you feel more alive. You just appreciate things more, life more.
Like our cup of tea and cake that we've had now we're in Hay on Wye, so
absolutely.
And another nice thing actually was that it was the first time in ages that I've actually switched my phone off. Normally I just have it on silent and charging, just in case. Don't know in case of, but there's no signal obviously in the mountains, so you just turned it off, and it was really nice just to sort of wander off and not hear traffic, not hear people chatting away on their phones and whatever else. Just have a nice long chat and talk to you.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Just to have that quiet and some time apart was fantastic.
Definitely. Nice bonding time.
The home of UK-based audio and video podcasts for lovers of the great outdoors everywhere.
It's all about getting out and having much more fun.
Well, there you have two women in a chintzy coffee shop and a lot of hot chocolate. I don't know what else to say, really. Okay, well, I think that pretty well brings this one to an end. I hope I've sort of caught up with you a bit more on the chit-chat front and added a few more snippets of information. As I say, if you want some fresh podcasts to listen to, do look up the Indie Travel podcast and have a look at the sea kayaking one as well, Simon Willis's series of podcasts there. That's really good independent listening. I've yet to find any more people producing content that is sort of in an area that would be of interest to our listeners, but I'm always looking. So if you do hear of anything, do make sure you drop me a line. You've got the email address, and obviously you can always Skype us if you've got a contribution you'd like to make to the programme. Christmas is looming. I suppose we should get together around an oak fire and share some messages, shouldn't we, really? Now, my plans regarding the podcast, just so you know, is I've got this series to come through, probably only 2 or 3 series from the Cairngorms Walk with Lee and Tony, but I'm hoping to start doing a bit more of the phone interviews that I did a while back. We've got a list of people who've all got interesting areas of interest, which I think would be of interest to listeners. So I want to start doing that. And I've also thought, Kerry's comment was quite true about, I did think that the 300th was going to be a big all singing, all dancing one, but it came right in the middle of the TGO series. But I had planned to speak to Glenn Van Pesky and Henry Shires and a few other people over in the US, just to discuss, if nothing else, where the lightweight movement is now 5 years on from when we started ourselves. I think that might be quite interesting to see what developments had happened and where in particular it's going from their point of view. Anyway, until next time, I'll leave you this thought. It's something I picked up in the Independent newspaper. Apparently, 30% of all the land in the UK is owned by only 103 people. And I thought I'd just see if I could double-check this. So I went onto the Land Registry website. And did you know that they say that almost 30% of the land in the UK isn't actually registered with them? So, if you're not doing anything this afternoon, why don't you go and find a plot of land and register it for yourself? I think it's a good use of time, don't you? Anyway, until next time, folks, hope you're enjoying the walking while you can, and we'll catch up with you soon. Take care now. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear more from our extensive free library, please visit the website at theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
You can now follow The Outdoor Station on Facebook, where we chat about each programme we produce, answer questions and discuss future productions. Why not join us there?
This podcast is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk.